Welcome to the event tonight. My name is Charlotte, and I am the head of global programming. So Factor Berlin is a diverse, curated community of over 5,000 creators and innovators from over 70 different nations, which is pretty cool. We are supporting and empowering creators and innovators, and these creators and innovators are not only founders and technologists, they are also creatives, they are also corporate innovators, they are also activists, all kinds of different people. And this event is an example of that. So this is one of our Masterclass series. Our Masterclass series is an opportunity for us to invite an expert on a particular topic to come and teach our community about a skill that's really important to them. And today's Masterclass is about creating culture in challenging times, which is of course very relevant right now, with our dear speaker, Kave. Kave is one of our community partners. She is a founding member of Black in Tech Berlin, and she's also the founder of TalentDiverse. And she's gonna be giving a presentation today about how you can create culture in challenging times, and then we're gonna have a short Q&A where you can ask her any questions that you have. So with all of that aside, I'm gonna get off the stage and I'm gonna give the stage to her. So please give a round of applause. Thank you.
My microphone is on. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for coming. It feels such a cozy room and such an intimate time that we're going to have together. So I hope you'll be inspired and you'll learn a little bit of how to build culture in these difficult times. And thank you, Charlotte, for giving an introduction about me. What Charlotte didn't mention is that I worked in TA for about 8 years as well in other companies, so talent acquisition, looking after HR and employer branding for many startups. And before launching into TalentDiverse, I was also the HR director at Smart Recruiters and also looked after diversity and inclusion. So I've had my share of seeing what culture is, what culture can be, and how can we make it better for everybody. All right, so we're gonna get into the presentation and the talk. And before we get started, I want to engage you a little bit. And I'd love you to go to, is this working? Yes. I'd love you to go to Mentimeter. Do you know Mentimeter? Amazing. So just go to www.mentimeter.com. And I'll need the screen to my laptop to be on the stage, yes. So type in that code 295 and so on. Amazing, we have some Mentimeter experts already. Yes, and the question is, what is the one thing that you love about your company at the moment? If you're not working at the moment, think about the company that you worked at last. Sorry, my hair. Amazing. Mission, people, colleague, impact, flexibility, learning, authenticity, flight hierarchies, vision, passion for the people, culture, learning, flexible time, mission. Amazing. I think we've got almost everybody's point. Do we have still people typing in? No. All right. So this is what you loved about your company or where you worked before. For the next question, I'd love to think about your team. What stands out the most about your team, either right now or before? Empathetic, loyalty, smart, transparency, purpose, diverse, humor, honesty, friendship, performance, fun, kindness, purpose, empathy, drive, trust, dedication, professionality, understanding, and performance. Would you say these elements are some of the things that kept you within that organization and team, or are also things that are still keeping you within this organization and team? Just by show of hands, if yes or no. Yes. Amazing. So culture is really important, as we see. And the other aspect that I want to bring out tonight, or that we're bringing out tonight, is uncertainty. So we're talking about workplace culture and uncertainty. This means that the way in which we looked at culture before being uncertain of the future should look different in these uncertain times that we're in as a society, as businesses, and as leaders and managers. And to that, I'd love to ask you, or test the waters, how certain are you of the future? How uncertain are you? Or you have both feelings? Okay. 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 So some people are certain, some people are uncertain, and some people have both feelings. But you can see there is a leveling between uncertainty and certainty, and that's just the reality of life, that we can be certain about some things, and we can also be uncertain about some things. But when it comes to the labor market, there is a degree of uncertainty right now that we all have with regards to our jobs, with regards to our businesses as founders, and with regards to the economy in general. And this is affecting the way we do work as individuals, but also the way we are approaching the way in which we're building our companies and organizations. And so I'm going to move straight on to go back to the slides and show you basically. So before that, no. Yes, here, workplace culture. You basically defined workplace culture with all the elements that I asked you before. What keeps you at your team or company, and what stands out in your company. So workplace culture is really shared values that you have as an organization or as a team, your beliefs, your attitudes, your behavior, and practices that you hold together as an organization or as a team. What's also important for me when I was doing research and what I've seen, it's how you do things. So beliefs and values and attitudes are great, but in the deep details of it is how you do things and how you make decisions as a company and as leaders and as manager. This is your culture. You probably have heard or have had experiences where you walk into a company, you've read amazing things, and 3 months down the line, you're like, is it what I read on the website? Or there's really no correlation between what you read on the website and what you are experiencing, because at the end of the day, the values and vision can live on the website, but it is really what you do within the organization, how you communicate, how you make decisions, and how people relate to one another. This is important. So, in relation to uncertain times, how should we look at this? How should we look at workplace culture? Since it concerns our beliefs and values and visions that we have for the organization. And one thing that I believe we should do is really to reevaluate our vision and values. And before we get into the vision and values, I also felt like there's a chain of cultural influence within organizations that flows from good leadership, which creates excellent teams, which is also influenced by management, good management. Bad managers don't create good teams you've heard, actually, that people leave managers, they don't leave jobs. Managers also leave not so great executive teams. And so in the end, you have these teams that have a reliance on management, which should be great. We should actually be guiding them into a specific direction. And also a leadership and executive team that should also be supporting management and then enable teams to actually perform their work. But the balance between how they communicate and how they live out their value tends to clash sometimes. So if you're looking to build a great workplace culture, this is how you have to see it. Good management, great executive teams will result into excellent teams. So, reevaluate your vision and values. I'm going to throw this to you again. How many of you know by heart the current vision of your companies? 2, 3, 4, 5? Amazing. And how many of you can truly say that on a daily basis you live some of the values of your company? Oh, quite a few people. For those who don't live out the values of your company or your teams, what is happening there? What is happening? Because truly, what made you decide to join a certain company, it's because you identified with their vision and values. And to a certain point along the line, you find yourself not really knowing exactly where are we going as a company, or where is this company going, and how are we actually practicing our values? How are we living them out? It's either you don't see them or you see them. And that is what will keep you there. And in difficult times, let's say, for example, you're letting people go at the moment. So there's a lot of uncertainty in the team, and there might be a lot of people operating in silos. Because people are afraid. They might even say, this vision, honestly, the next 6 months that come, we're not even sure we're going to be here. So how closely related, how should I feel a connection to this vision and value when I know 6 months from now, the company might not be there? So that's from the employee side. But as a leader and manager, you don't want to remain with people who are in a state where they don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months. Because then they're just like, they're burning time with you. So you want to reevaluate really and sit them down and talk to them again about your vision and your value, despite the fact that you're losing money, despite the fact that you're letting people go, you still need people to believe in the vision that you have and the value that you set for your company. So try and do that. I hope it's going to go great for you and you'll remain with great employees in the end. The second thing is really communication. After you have reevaluated this value and visions that you have for your business and your teams, you need to communicate it. When you're watching property videos, you always hear location, location, location. And when I was doing this research, communication always kept coming as the key. So communication, communication, communication. You have a lot of companies that you're waking up today, tomorrow you're being fired, you're being let go. You have a lot of organizations that raised money last month, and then this month, we don't have money anymore. How can it be that within the space of 1 month we're celebrating, and then the next month we're crying? So in all honesty, the communication that happens between the top and the bottom is not really transparent, or was not really transparent and needs to be transparent. So if you really want to build strong teams that are resilient, you need to be a bit transparent with them, especially if you're a leader, you're a manager, you're a founder. Of course, you need to exercise wisdom especially for those in leadership positions. I've been there myself. And it's not everything that you can say after coming from an executive meeting or a meeting with investors. It's not everything that you can convey to your team or everybody that's depending on you, but you have to exercise some wisdom between not saying anything and telling a degree of truth that's going to put people in a place where they actually understand the reality of things and begin to prepare for it, whether it be positive or whether it be negative. And that's something that you do not get in the startup environment in Berlin or in many hyper-growth organizations, because the pressure is just so tough and so hard. But if you want a difference, then you need to be open and very communicative. One of the things that I wanted to highlight as well in the communication is that you need to communicate goals, expectations, and progress. How many of you here have teams? You set up OKRs in January. You want them to be made by March. But March comes, nothing. It's like perhaps 50% of the goals that you set were achieved and 50% of them were not achieved. Again, what happened here is this lack of communicating to your team members the expectations that you have towards them. Or perhaps you did communicate expectations, but the way in which you were evaluating from January to March, if those expectations and goals were being met, might not have been cleared. So, as a manager and as a leader, you do need to put yourself in this place where you're communicating and also setting goals and expectations, and the way in which you evaluate progress needs to be clear with your team. There is great responsibilities, unfortunately, as a leader. The next thing you need to do after communicating is really encourage collaboration. Again, we're talking about this because of uncertainty. When a company is going through challenging times, everybody is working in silo, or there might be a potential people working in silos. What's the point on collaborating on a project that 50% of the people have been cut off? Or perhaps there's just now 2 people, a manager or lead for that team, and an intern. That team probably needs support from another team. How do you encourage collaboration in a space where you're running out of resources? One of the resources being money, which affects the number of people on the team. But you still need to make the deliverables that you need to make as a business towards your investors and towards your customer. So you really need to bring people together towards a common vision, towards a space where they're collaborating and using the minimal resources that are there to at least bring you back afloat, or even, take you to greater profits than you were, which might be hard to expect in difficult times, but that should be the goal if you really want to survive these challenging economic times. Next is embracing flexibility. A lot of you talked about what makes your team really great, or what makes your company great, and it's really flexibility. And what flexibility looks like in great economic times to how it looks right now, it's a bit different. If anyone in the room can imagine or can throw an example what flexibility could look like right now in difficult times, what could it be? Remote work, yes, absolutely. Part-time work, yeah, that's really nice. I love that. I love that. Especially for mothers who want to work fewer hours. Might be a great time to actually, use this opportunity to bring them into work, because they actually want to work only a certain amount of hours. They don't want to work 40 hours a week.
Contract versus full-time.
Contract versus full-time, also great idea. Yeah. Switch position internally. How do you envision that? Okay. This is in the space where they are not trying to eliminate your job. But also, I think it would actually be a great idea because sometimes when companies and leaders are cutting out certain positions, it's been advised to actually talk to your employees and see how they can come with new ways in which you can work, which could actually be this, I'll take a much a less paid role, and this is how I envision it to work for me as an individual, but which will bring more benefits to organization. So that's really a great idea. Anyone else?
Some people let them go on unpaid leave for education and things like that.
Some people might be allowed to go on unpaid leave or sabbatical. But do you really think anybody will want to go on sabbatical during difficult times?
I mean, for education, I think it's best time rather than getting fired.
And probably we're talking about being in Germany and Berlin. This will actually be facilitated where you take a sabbatical or, take a study leave for a while. Yes?
Flexibility in embracing your team to suggest solutions, giving your team autonomy as opposed to dictating to them what they should be doing and how to achieve things.
Absolutely, that's really great. And this really speaks a lot to leaders and managers who have little to no time to even think about possibilities during this time. So they really need to be in the work environment, or they need to have broader executive teams that really, really care also about their management and allow them this space where they can actually think and come up with solutions. And so if you're here and you have that power and that authority, or if you have the influence to actually talk to your managers, honestly do suggest to them this idea of being flexible. Before we take the big decision, how else can we re-see these decisions that we're taking as a business? So yes, embrace flexibility. The other aspect that really, really touches me a lot is, as leaders and managers, founders, business leaders, is really to increase our level of care. I have a feeling, for the most times I've worked in Berlin, I haven't been with a company that really had a care culture, especially in difficult times. And difficult times is really when you have to fire people, you have to discipline people, you have to go through difficult conversation. And I feel like the way you treat people now in difficult situations will actually determine the kind of atmosphere that stays behind for those who are left, and also what kind of message the other employees that you've let go with. Because those are your alumni, and they go with a certain experience depending on how you're treating them. So this first example of how you treat them, the employees that are going, is relating more to letting people go. But there are also other great things like recognizing accomplishment of your team, which is great. I've been at a company where we used to ring a bell every time we will meet our HR goals, and we'll drink champagne. So that was really nice for my team at that time. And I've also worked at companies where I've been provided with learning and development budget. And also I've worked at companies where they said, yes, we have the budget, but it's kind of like when you want it, they're like, you actually do need to go to the founder to kind of get the budget. And you're like, it's in the job description, It should be easy to be accessible. And so it's really about how much do you care determines the atmosphere inside, and also determines how people feel about you for the longest time you can imagine. A lot of people are going through huge emotional how do you say this? A lot of people are suffering emotionally because of the prospect of their jobs and how they've been let go and how can they be supported. And it's really important how we as managers and leaders facilitate this transition. We're not going to support it for the longest period of time, but we really need to take care of it from at least for a period of 3 months and then let people go and find their own way around the labor market. I don't know if there's anybody in this room who has had an exceptional level of care from their employer that they can share with us that has stood out for them. Or if you're a founder, you have an exceptional care idea for your team. Yes?
I got a situation in my life when I was working for a company and then I decided to go for a cruise ship to work. And the founder of a company, he paid during a year salary to me, so me to come back. So
You're lucky, girl. What's the name of the company?
it was a new venture. Actually, after I came back, the next year we founded a company together with him.
Okay.
And he became my business partner, and it was during 7 years. We've been in Forbes. We founded a company in different countries. But at that moment, I was a student of graduating in university, but he felt that girl that he needed me.
Wow. That's really great. Did he tell you, like, do you know what made him invest so much in trying to keep you?
He was a wise founder. He felt people, and that's it.
Absolutely. How many of you have great founders like that? Oh, it's not a Berlin thing. Did you say something? No founders like that. That's really sad that we don't have great stories about founders and founders culture in Berlin. So it's really something that we need to work on. But it's really great to see that you can have a leader that can see potential, like really see potential in somebody, see potential in their team members, and actually find a way to invest in them depending on the direction that they want to go with that specific team or that specific individual. So show a little bit of care. It really goes a long way for those who stay and those who go beyond your work environment. Another aspect that I want to encourage is employee engagement. But in this time, we talk about team engagement. How many of you here have had team experiences that are encouraged by the company? So great team experiences. So how your team has been engaged in the way that your performance is appreciated, or you're encouraged to continue doing the great work that you're doing as a team. How has your company supported you in trying to achieve that? If and when they have.
Like team building?
Yeah. Have you heard? Do you have team buildings?
Yeah, and we had like people come and talk about a topic, and nothing happened after. So
Okay.
it's sad because it's a great idea, but it's not used afterwards in the company.
Okay, so you would have team building activities and people will come and talk about certain topics. Those topics were for the benefits of the company, but then nothing happened after. Did you find that even after having those conversations, your team specifically became closer? Absolutely. So and this is what we're talking about. You can have great teams that are working well, but without a leadership, an executive team, or a management team that actually see the importance of engaging this team, which are actually moving their businesses forward. And to be honest with you, I have not worked at companies that have a lot of budget for their teams, for engaging their teams. A lot of the times you have meetings with teams, global teams, regional teams. You talk, and like you say, You talk, and then after 2 weeks, everybody kind of forgot what really happened. And so if this is what happens in normal circumstances, how important is it to have great team engagement activities in difficult times? Because imagine now you just have 5 people working on your product because you've cut out 10 already. It's really important for you to continue talking to them and continue seeing if you're still aligned and you still have the same vision, you still share the same values, they're still excited to be working together, even on low budget. Otherwise, there's really not much you're working on as an organization because people are just like waiting for the moment to, And so if you care, really, invest a little bit into your teams and your team engagement, even if it's just one person. I actually do love like one person or 2 people kind of team where you have an intern and somebody who's a bit senior. These people, you can actually really build them up to take your company to a greater level and get their buy-in in terms of your mission and vision and really help you scale. Because sometimes there's this idea that you need a large team to get the vision or the work done, but actually you just need a few people who care, who understand exactly what needs to be done, possibly have the skills to do the job, and get you where you need to be as a team and as a business. So try and engage your teams a little bit and see where that takes you, especially right now in this difficult time. Invest in that, or ask your managers to invest in it. You might not be there after asking for it. You might be seen as the troublemaker, but you've spoken the truth, and that's what it is. Speak the truth. And lastly, most important to me, of course, is diversity and inclusion. Promoting teams that are diverse or that have values of diversity and inclusion is very, very important and critical in this moment. We've all heard that diverse teams and inclusive teams are the best ways to get to innovation and creativity, but we haven't seen a lot of successes actually when it comes to diversity and inclusion in many organizations. And even right now, with the layoffs that are going on in the world, the little diversity that was there in many companies is actually going outside the window. A lot of women are losing their jobs. A lot of people of color are losing their jobs because the levels at which they were hired were not well critical to the business. And so, you get rid of any positions that was not really critical to business. And this says a lot about your values, which actually determine your culture as an organization. So my call is, as an organization, you really need to rethink and reevaluate what diversity looks like for you and inclusion looks like for you after this season. It should not just be simple representation, but actually, if it really matters to you, it should be in the critical size of your business. If it's not critical, honestly, I don't want to say don't bother, but it's not helpful. It's not helpful to hire women and underrepresented talent in teams that you can do without if push come to shove. It's a hard one, but it is the truth. Critical positions are kept, and people in critical positions remain in their jobs. Those that were not critical are out of the organization, and we have a lot of women and people of color in this area of business. This says a lot about who we are as an organization. This says a lot about who we are as leaders, as managers, when we're hiring, when we're engaging with diverse talent. Where are we really positioning them in this conversation, and what does that mean to us, our culture, and our value as a company? So I will leave you with that reflection as you go. Some of you might not be founders or executives or managers at this moment, but when you get to that stage and when the economy recovers, do really rethink some of your vision, your values, the way in which you communicate, how you treat people, how do you engage people as an organization and as a leader. That's going to be important and will help you survive every step of the way, whether the economy is doing well or the economy is not doing well. So I'll just put this here together for you to take a screenshot if you want to take a screenshot of the ingredients of cultural influence in your organization. And I hope that you will go and reevaluate this for yourself and for your company. You do need to know the vision of your company and their values and figure out if you identify with them as a person or as a leader. Does it still make sense? Does this vision still take me where I want to go? And am I really living the values that we have on the website? Is my team living these values? Is management living these values, or they're just like written on the, on the website and on those flyers in the stairs? And for this, you can do a survey through Culture Amp and figure out how your team feels about your vision. And you need to communicate, but you need to do it differently. Be strategic about it, set goals, expectations, and monitor progress. It's difficult, but that's why you're a leader, and you can do it, you can manage. A reinforced collaboration. You have less resources right now. You need everybody on deck with the little money that you have in order for you to recover or to go even a bit further than you were before. You need to be flexible. This is really important. The world is moving very fast. We have a shortage of talent in Germany, and then we have a lot of people here who can't get into the job market. And so really reevaluate and rethink about your strategy as a business and as a team and as a manager who really wants to do great work. And lastly, honestly, just care for people. Just care for people's well-being, whether they stay with you or you're letting them go. How they feel will determine what they say about you as an employee outside and determines the quality of brand presence you will have in the future. It does really matter on Glassdoor. For people who think it doesn't matter, it really does matter how you care about your employees. Amazing. So we'll go on to Q&A. Thank you.
Would you raise your hand if you have a question? Any questions? Don't be shy. Anyone? It's okay if there's no questions. We also have networking afterwards, so you can ask questions one-on-one if you're feeling shy. But I'm going to ask one last time if anyone has any questions now. Thank you, Kave, for joining us. Thanks. Please, one more round of applause.
You have a question?
Are you raising a hand? Are you?
Yeah.
Raising a hand? Oh, okay.
I can't see the starlight in my eyes.
Thanks, Kava, for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
First a comment, then a question. I really agree with you that knowing your vision is key, and knowing your values and living your values are key. You mentioned many times throughout the presentation, communicate this, maybe reevaluate and whatnot. And my question for you is that enough? Could employees really live a value or know the vision just by talking about it? Or is there a need for something else, something perhaps more profound and deeper?
Good question. So I think the first thing is to know it, as you said, really, really knowing it. A lot of employees read the vision and values when we're interviewing for our jobs. And, we get through the interview process, we get the job, yes, well done, off we go. And after that, no one, whether it is the employee or the manager, nobody really reevaluates if you're actually living, you're walking to those values that you read, and your manager actually looking and seeing if you match, if there is a match between what you communicated in the beginning to what's happening right now. But if you're a manager, you do evaluate if an employee has this might be biased, this is where you talk about culture fit. If an employee is really fitting into the organization and to the way that you work as an organization, and you do this after the 6 months period, 3 months period, and that determines if you stay within the organization. So I would say it's really raising awareness and consciousness about what is this company that I'm walking into, what are they standing on, and do I actually relate? Do these values actually speak to me? And how should I be living that on a daily basis? So there is that part of the employee, and then the manager ensuring that there is actually space for you to live out the values that the company communicates. But this really requires a healthy working space, a working culture where this relationship is possible. I have not seen a lot of that environment, but if the workplace has a healthy culture, there's supposed to be a time when you say, yes, I agree, I relate, I feel a connection to the value of this organization, and I'm going to contribute to walk them to success. And your manager seeing that, oh yeah, Kave is really doing well here. Like there is a sync between the way she works and the way she gels with the team, and this is driving us towards success. But like I said again, communication. This needs to be talked about and needs to be communicated between both parties. Otherwise, nothing happens. Thank you.
More question?
Hi, Kava. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
So my question is about that I observed there is a polarization in the companies that I have seen, because there are some companies that are really invested in the diversity strategies, they have been doing a lot, and then they would think that, well, they have been, doing good enough. On the other hand, there are companies with real problems that have never had any training or awareness raising, but then they don't think that they have a problem at all. Or they would think that this is not a priority, this is not something that we can invest in right now as we don't have enough money. So therefore, it just seems like the ones with some real problems that can be helped, they are not willing to be helped in the first place. Therefore, is there a way to solve this? Thanks.
There is a way to solve this, and going in there, if you love the company, you really want to work with them, you need to go in there, and of course after observation then you'll find ways in which people communicate and raise this issue. But then again, that makes you the person who wants to fix this company. Remember I showed the slide where there needs to be a structure of good executive team that's invested at least in trying to create an environment that is positive for teams. And this polarization in companies that are not invested, it really does not come from the bottom up, it really comes from the top bottom. If the executive team is not invested in addressing certain issues or challenges in the organizations that they don't consider important, I think it is a struggle for employees to try and convince them to work on it. And so it really becomes, if you want to be the person to try and keep convincing this group of executives and managers to solve issues around diversity or equal pay or fair treatment, and in the end really just put you in your position that you won't be doing your job but actually fighting the system that you found yourself in as an employee. And I would say, again, this is where you have the power to decide if that company's values really speak to you. They can speak to you on the website, but it's another thing when you walk in there. And you do have the opportunity also within the next 6 months to decide if you want to be there or not. And this is what I always feel, that employees always feel that they don't have the power within the 6 months. it's really supposed to be a relationship between the two of you, the employer and the employee, and either one of you can really terminate this relationship if it doesn't work. This might sound very privileged, though. If you have quite many options. But honestly, you either agree that it doesn't work now than try to fix it in the next year that comes. So choose where your values fit more, and once you've proven that actually your values are actually appreciated, I will do it that way. Behind you.
Thank you, Kave. That was great. I had a question about increasing the level of care. And I was particularly thinking about middle management and ways, like if you have any particular advice on supporting them, because they're getting a lot of the emotional brunt of supporting their team members.
Absolutely. I think you need to talk to them, have constant communication in understanding where the burden is coming from. And most of the times, managers are burnt out because they are not getting support from the top management. Neither are they getting the resources that they need to address, the conversation at the bottom of the organization. And so upper management really needs to be in constant communication with middle managers and see really tangibly what are the resources that they need in order to be able to address the challenges at the bottom. A lot of the time, the challenges really most of the time is to be transparent about the current situation or the next, the progress of the company, where we're going, is everything okay? We're short-staffed, what's the plan? Everything is most of the time blurry. So middle management or upper management needs to be concretely invested in trying to know how to support middle management so they can actually do their job and not get the fire from employees. There's one question here.
Thank you. Okay, so it's regarding the vision and values, because I feel like vision and values keep changing for startups, especially. You start somewhere and you keep pivoting and it turns into something else. So what advice do you have when you're early stage startup founder and to recruit people to work on your vision with you? How would you go about it? Like, what are some tips, maybe,
So when you're actually very small, it's quite easy to shape your vision and your values, because there is probably maybe like 2 or 3 of you. It's quite easy to create this neat community that kind of understands, where you're going and what you're trying to achieve. But when you start expanding that vision, in order for it to be broken down into pieces so that the people coming in understand it, becomes really hard. And so I will say, as you grow, as you start and continue to grow, you need to communicate your vision and values over time. And I agree, like, change is inevitable, but I don't think your values should be constantly be changing. If there were bad values, they should actually change. But if you have already good values as an organization, the direction you take can change. You can either decide to look at the AI, and then maybe next you look at VR, like that business direction can change. But the values, if you say that we care about people, whether you change technology or not, you should still care about people. It doesn't matter whether you use AI or VR, like people, you said you care, you should still care about that. And it's easy when you're small, but you need to bring in around you other people who believe in your values and can communicate that to the next layer of people coming in.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
I know, but it's really,
because the values of you versus the other 5 people, to align all of their values is definitely very difficult. And if you are very stringent on how the values would align, then it's hard to recruit people to work on something. Like, I have just felt that, you just have to discover it somehow in the course, because then you always converge somehow on certain values. And also based on the diversity of the team, like, I think values could be like more inclusive in a way. So yeah, just my thought.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why it's a continuous process. It's a continuous learning process. There is no end as to when you stop reevaluating your vision and value as a company. The problem is you think there is an end. And then 3 years later, you're like, oh my gosh, what have we become? You know, it's because nobody really went back and actually looked at what we said from year 1 to year 3. And also year 1 is supposed to look different from year 3. And so raising this consciousness that as you grow, you need to reevaluate how you do things as an organization. And startup culture doesn't give you the space, but you need to fight for it. So you can actually hold your sanity yourself as a manager. You're welcome.
One last question.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I
Welcome.
do share your experience with German companies.
Thank you.
Do you have podcast or books recommendation about the topic? Please?
To be honest with you, in Germany, I don't feel that we've invested a lot in people and culture. Like, at the top of my head, there isn't a podcast that speaks about our work culture in Europe and Germany that you can listen to and be like, okay, great. I mean, the company that I know that works a lot on culture is Culture Amp, because that's the product that they're building to promote great culture within organization. And they usually do a lot of talks. They write a lot of books around how you can promote great culture within your organization. And they have a lot of tools as well that can help you evaluate the state of your culture within your organization. So Culture Amp will be great. I do have another book called Designing for the Community. And I think this also is a book that I would recommend for managers who are looking to enable their teams to build great products that speaks to the community and speak to their employees. And some great people in Berlin, actually. There is somebody sitting in this room, Lena. She works a lot on building teams, helping shape organizational culture right here in Germany. And I think she would be amazing just to speak to and see what experiences she's had. And she's worked with startups and also traditional German companies. So she has experiences on both ends. Yeah, and myself. You're welcome.
There's a company called BetterUp. I think it's
Yeah.
in the US, but it still has like content.
Better apps, you just talk about better app. But you know, we really need some European, German content and learning material that really speaks to this environment, because what we do is we take cultural practices from the US and they don't work for Europe. Or, you know, we may try, but the culture here makes it so a bit difficult for us to gel into the model of the US. Another book actually is called Drive. We had Drive as a book when I worked at Zalando, and literally like the company got it for every single person, and just really to promote one of the value was Drive. So how do we promote Drive as a value within the entire organization? And Drive by being driven teams, driven individuals to become self-sustainable in making decisions as humans in companies. I think that's a good one. Super. Thank you so much for the interaction. It was amazing.
One last round of applause, please.
Thank you.